Kia ora, I'm Liz.
And I'm Jan.
And we're going to have a conversation today around some of the different responses that people have experienced from living here in Hawke's Bay and the cyclone. So, Jan, we're hearing a lot of different responses to what's happened and how actually they are normal responses to an abnormal situation.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about the fight, flight, freeze response and how that's affecting people differently?
Okay. So when we are faced with a trauma, which is what happened to us all during the cyclone, it's like the thinking part of the brain just shuts down and the survival part of the brain kicks off, okay? And we all respond in different ways and we don't know how we're going to respond.
Okay.
So probably most people have heard of fight and flight, but there's also freeze, so it's fight, flight, freeze. And all of these are adaptive in different situations, so it's important to know they all have value, but it's also important to know that we don't get to choose which one we're going to have, and so one's not better than another.
Okay.
And maybe we all need to do a different thing because we bring something different. So what we've seen is the people who have the fight response, and a lot of these have been the blokes, I must say, but the women as well, and they've been into it, right? So their adrenaline is pushing them along. They've been doing amazing work getting things started, and the women have been doing lots of the backup, the organising, the cooking, the providing, but also in there with the shovels.
Yeah.
And they seem to have amazing energy and focus. So that's your fight response. Something's happened, I'm going to hit it back.
I'm going in.
I'm going in.
Yeah.
I'm not having it, right?
Yeah.
And of course we need those people. That is totally amazing.
Yeah.
But we mustn't forget that not everybody is going to respond in that way. And how they respond may also depend a bit on what their history is and what things have happened to them in the past. And we don't know about that. So other people will have the flight response, which is, I just want to escape. I want to get away. This is just too terrible. I can't deal with it. And that has value because sometimes getting away is the best thing you can do to survive. Yeah. But there are different ways of escaping. So some people are going to do the geographical escape. And we did have people who as soon as they could get over our Eastdale Bridge, I think it took them like 3 or 4 hours, but they just wanted out. Yeah. So they needed to be somewhere else. And there are also, especially as time goes on, people might use other methods of escape. So they may find that they're using alcohol or drugs or medications more than they were. Some might be doing online shopping. That's probably one of my go-tos.
Social media.
Social media.
Yeah.
Gambling. Anything that kind of takes their mind away and puts them in a different space. So those are all escapes. Yeah. Because sometimes what has happened is too overwhelming for the brain to cope with. And so it actually has to kind of like stagger the acceptance. Okay. And so we do these escape things to give our mind time to gradually take in what's happened. Right. So don't think that's wrong. That's,
That's such an important message.
Yeah. And of course those ways of escaping can become problematic in the long term if they stay around and may need some help. But we need to be really kind and know that actually our mind is probably just trying to look after itself. Yeah. And just take in a little bit at a time. Awesome. So, and the other thing that probably people don't know so much about is the freeze response, which is another trauma response which can be really useful. So like if you're getting chased by a bear in North America, if you run, it will get you. If you fight, it will kill you. So actually going into freeze is what is going to give you the best chance of survival. And our minds don't know whether we're in North America, whether it is or whether we're in
that brain's responding.
That's right. Yeah, so it's just the brain responding. So those people might feel like they're paralysed, they're frozen, they can't think, they don't know what to do, and they might just go very sort of in on themselves, quite closed down. Yeah. And then they might feel really bad, like as they start to become aware of that, they're thinking, why aren't I out there with my shovel or cooking up huge meals for people? I'm not a very good person. Sometimes they might even think, what's wrong with me? I don't have any empathy because I can't feel anything. I'm just numb. So I think it's really important for those people and the people around them to understand that that is also a trauma response, and we don't get to choose what trauma response we might have. Could be any of those.
That's really powerful. And what about sort of time frames with these responses? You know, we know that the recovery of Hawke's Bay is going to be a long journey. How long do these freeze, fight, flight last?
Okay, well, there's no actual time frame, but what I can say, and I can especially say it after talking to people in our area that have been doing the fight response, that it was probably after about 4 weeks, I think, that the adrenaline started dropping away, and they were actually feeling really exhausted and flat. So that will burn out. It also, interestingly enough, the fight response can serve as an escape. Because you're in there doing things and you don't have to think. So it's really useful and we need it, but it's actually delaying people allowing their feelings and responses to be conscious to them, if you know what I mean. If we look at what the literature says, and as I say, everybody's different, but it is absolutely normal for everybody to be having like a 4 to 6 week period of feeling like really out of it on one of those. And we don't start talking about it being a problem or an ongoing thing till at least 3 months, but probably 6 would be more likely. And then it's more if instead of the symptoms that we're experiencing reducing, sometimes new ones are coming in or they're amping up. So nightmares, not being able to sleep, feeling really anxious when you go out, finding every time it rains you're in a panic, helicopter flying over and you're thinking, oh my God, they're looking for people. Absolutely normal for, I would say, several months. And but if it just keeps on going on and disrupting people's lives and what they're able to do, then it's time to maybe see if you can get some help from somewhere.
And what can people do, either in all of those responses or the individual ones? You know, are we able to sort of get ourselves out of it, or is it a case of riding it?
Well, there are things that we can do. So when people are in the fight response and they're in it, they're not going to stop. You try and stop them, you won't be able to. So I guess for them, it's knowing that when the adrenaline's kind of worn off and they're feeling exhausted and they might be feeling really flat and they might even be feeling like they don't have a purpose anymore, to encourage those people to know that that is absolutely normal and that now their mind needs to start processing what has happened, because while they were in there doing all that good work, their mind was busy doing what it needed to do. But sooner or later, all of our minds need to start processing that we've been in a potentially life or death situation. And it's not very nice, you know, that's the thing. You can't blame people for wanting to escape from something that's not nice. But it is a way forward. And I think what we need to know and for people to know is that you will get through it, you will survive. You've always been a strong person before, you'll keep being a strong person. I think people get, once the emotion starts coming, that they start feeling that they might get totally overwhelmed and lose their mind. And no, that's extremely, extremely unlikely to happen. So what we can do is we can try and allow the feelings to come and be with them, and notice them, label them, give them a name, be kind to ourselves about them. Oh look, this feels so overwhelming and horrible. People become worried that they're going to be totally overwhelmed by their feelings, and there are some things that you can do to make sure that you're not being flooded, so that you can actually kind of manage having these emotions in bits. So I think it's really important to notice the emotion, notice you're having it, label it, be kind to it, give a little bit of love, and but also know you don't have to stay there, because you don't want to stay in that place all the time. So it's about being able to also come out of that. That's my cat Sadie up there in the little meow. So you might think about the things that are distracting for you, that bring you back to a place of calmness. So you might like music, you might go for a walk, you might ring a friend, you might do some breathing, you might do some grounding, so noticing what's coming in through all your senses. What can I see, what can I hear, what can I smell, taste and feel. So all those things can kind of bring us back, give us space and get on with things. And then go through that process again when you need to, because the emotions and those feelings, they don't go away if we give them no space. So if we get into a struggle with them and we just push them away every time they come, they're not going anywhere, and our mind knows we need to heal, and it knows in order to heal we need to process. So our mind will kindly keep bringing things back to us. Until we do the mahi.
When we're awake and when we're asleep.
That's right. So when you're asleep, you can get nightmares. So something that can happen to people who are really good at just pushing away, is their mind says, okay, I'm going to get you to do this while you're sleeping, so I'm going to give you some nightmares.
Absolutely.
So if people do get nightmares, I think a good thing to do is to actually thank your mind for wanting to help you while you're asleep, and notice what the nightmare was about, what the themes were, and again just try to be with it and let it be there. And instead of seeing it as I'm being attacked every time I go to sleep, which is an understandable response,
100%.
think, okay, mind, I'm not liking this, but I know that you're trying to help me, and so I'll try and help you by notice these things while I'm awake.
And going there. Absolutely. And what about in couples, in relationships, in friendships, in different dynamics, where one, as you say, through no control of their own, has gone into that fight space, and one's gone into that freeze space that can absolutely cause some friction between the two. How would you help them navigate that?
Okay. So the big thing is for people to recognise, as we said at the beginning, that we don't get to choose what kind of trauma response we're going to have. We can't tell. And it might be different in different situations, and they are adaptive in different situations, and people's responses may also be affected by their history and what other traumas they've had. So what we know is the effects of trauma kind of can accumulate, and so if somebody's had a lot of trauma before, they're actually more easily triggered. Okay, so they're more vulnerable. So again, it's about kindness and not judging. So don't judge yourself for what response you've got, and don't judge the other person for the response they've got, because they can't help theirs any more than you can help yours. Okay. They're just different ways of doing things, and the best way for people to navigate is to try and talk openly and directly. So for example, if we've got someone who's having a freeze response and they've got a partner who's having the fight response, the fight response person is out there working from dawn till dark, coming home exhausted with nothing left in the tank, and the person who's got the freeze response is at home feeling really shit, and thinking, I can't do anything, I can't go anywhere, what's wrong with me, I can't be out there doing that.
They're caring about everybody else.
They're caring about everybody else, and there's no support from me. And then that could start causing a distance and a judgment of what's right and what's wrong, and that's what you really want to avoid, because we didn't choose those responses, and we need to try and support each other, that each way of responding is valid for that person.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. So what would you say is the key takeaway from this that you would love everybody to know?
I want everybody to understand that it is absolutely normal to have a total array of different responses when we've been through a traumatic event, and that, as you said before, it's a normal response to an abnormal event, and there's no right or wrong. And each of these ways of responding have some benefits and maybe some downsides as well. And we just need to be kind to ourselves and work with what we've got and slowly work through that to the end. So being kind to ourselves, kind to others, and not judging different responses.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan.